Hello, this is Dan. And I want to tell you that I've been sued in federal court twice by a library public relations person who was acting, in my opinion, for the American Library Association, but the American Library Association didn't directly sue me. And but the settlement complaint that they wanted, they had a settlement offer that they made to me, and that was that if I deleted my article about the homophobia at the American Library Association, then they would drop the lawsuit against me. Well, what I wrote was true, and so I never dropped it, and it's still published to this day, and they lost their case twice. The American Library Association trained librarians that they need to bring lawsuits against people, defamation lawsuits in particular, in order to silence them, run them out of all sorts of money, and time, and otherwise discourage them and shut them up. So this is a tactic that they are trained to do. You have become a victim of this tactic, just like I was. As I read this petition for damages, I see that the first major problem that she complains against you is in bold letters, and it says that why is she fighting so hard to keep sexually erotic and pornographic materials in the kids section, right? That's the defamation. It is just a question, and she thinks that that's defamation. But I got this really great point here that that Jamie says is quote, "That is a very good catch," and that's this. You see, in the American Library Association's so-called, get this, Library Bill of Rights, they added the word age at some point. I think it was 1967. And they made it age discrimination to treat kids' books differently than from any other books. And there are many policies or interpretations on that, and why librarians should not be separating out this stuff, this porn stuff from the kids section, putting it in an adult section. They should not be doing that. So it's literally an American Library Association diktat that Amanda is following, that you're complaining about, that she's complaining is defamation. So she's complaining is defamation that you say she wants to keep the porn books in the kids section. But that's American Library Association policy. She's following policy by doing that. And she's complaining that it's defamation to say that. If it's so vile and sick, as this one guy put it when he wrote to me using the word vile, then that vile and sick thing is part of the Library Bill of Rights. So now that brings up another point. Not only is it in the Library Bill of Rights that you can't keep this stuff separated because of age, but the fact that she's claiming it's defamation because you say that, because it's policy, but she makes it look like you're the wrong ones. But this could be vexatious litigation. This is not a real claim she's bringing against you. She's just trying to follow the American Library Association defamation, suing for defamation, slap suit crap. And she's doing it on this grounds, which is a fake, phony, and fraud grounds because it's ALA policy. On that grounds, you could countersue for vexatious litigation and get treble damages. Depends on your state, of course. Maybe from the Louisiana School Library Association, because they can't go around doing this to people. She's their leader. She's gotten so many awards. I was going to tell you, I bet you she's going to get a Mover and Shaker award from Library Journal. Well, she already got that last year. She gets there's no defamation going on here. She's only going to get bigger. Okay, so what I'd like to tell you is I'd like to give you encouragement. To tell you that you're doing the right thing, that if you have children, I'm assuming you do, that they will be very proud of you for standing up and doing the right thing. You're advocating for child safety. And from what I can tell from the complaint, you're doing it in a way that is not really exposing you to liability. Because if you're telling the truth, then that's not defamation. I will also tell you this, the American Library Association, and obviously now the Louisiana Library, or wherever you are, I think it's Louisiana, they go out of their way to train people on how to fool communities. So I want to tell you why. I want to also tell you why we're here, why I'm talking to you about this. I'm talking to you about this because librarians are pushing this stuff on children. And why are librarians pushing this stuff on children? Well, that's because of the American Library Association. And why does the American Library Association do that? Well, that's because of the American Civil Liberties Union of Illinois. Back in 1967 or whatever, Judith Krug was was a board member for 3 years of the ACLU of Illinois. She joined the American Library Association, I believe, while she was a board member. Eventually, she left that board, but while she was at ALA, she created the Office for Intellectual Freedom, the Freedom to Read Foundation, and years later, banned Books Week. She is the person who came from ACLU and changed how librarians approached children. No longer would they keep children from inappropriate material. Now they would push it on the children and leave it up to the parents to stop it, while misleading the parents so that the parents could not stop it even if they tried. That's why we're all here. This is an ACLU thing to push inappropriate material on children. There are numerous people who, and it has spread throughout the librarian ranks, because if you did not follow those rules, you were ostracized and eventually left the position, or you were constructively discharged, which means you quit because you couldn't stand it any longer. Basically what that means. There's a lot of librarians who, who are like that. Many are silent nowadays. They don't want to say anything for fear of losing their jobs. There are many librarians out there who know this is wrong and don't do anything about it because they fear Judith Krug's Office for Intellectual Freedom. She led that office for 50 years until she died. Now, the ALA president is somebody who comes along every year. So the president isn't even as powerful as this Judith Krug was for 50 years at the head of the Office for Intellectual Freedom. In fact, she got the ALA to spend $1.5 million with the ACLU, but the ALA's money, on a law case to try to keep children having access to pornography in public libraries. That was the SEPA case, and they lost that one. That was called Board of Education. No, it wasn't. It was called United States versus American Library Association. They lost that one. They lost $1.5 million on a losing case because she is the most important person to that organization. And to this day, everybody dances around her rules that were all formed from the American Civil Liberties Union. That's why we're all here in the first place. So now it's gotten worse. She's dead, but it's getting worse. So now we have this out and open graphic child pornography, like in genderqueer. And these people are now advocating for this as a First Amendment right. They call it freedom, and they call it Unite Against Book Bans, and they talk about it on Banned Books Week, which is a hoax in and of itself. And that's why we're here. So they're all defending this stuff. And they've been trained to sue people for defamation. And you have been sued for defamation by this woman who's big in the ALA, who leads the AASL. She's going to be the keynote speaker or the president or whatever of the American Association of School Librarians, which is an ALA organization. And she's doing what they say. So this is to me, this is kind of vexatious litigation because they're carrying out orders to file defamation suits. They're suing you for something which is actually written into their Library Bill of Rights. And they've been ordered to file defamation suits. In my opinion, I don't know this for certain yet because I haven't dug up all the facts yet, right? But I have seen this in other cases. I've been involved personally in some of those other cases. That's why I've seen this. I have been going after this organization for over 20 years, since they started sexualizing my kid in kindergarten. And, well, ooh la la, she said in a lusty voice, going skinny dipping on a date with 3 guys at the same time. Okay, that was for my kindergartner from the American Library Association member librarian using an American Library Association list. And that's when I began to realize that what Dr. Laura was saying about the ALA pushing porn on kids was correct. I actually stopped listening to Dr. Laura when she said that, because I said to myself, that lady's crazy. They're not doing that. Then when it happened to my kid, it came back to me right away. I went to the public library and I found they had a website called Fun Sites for Kids and Teens. And one of the fun sites for kids was Go Ask Alice, where you can learn how to go and hang yourself to have a better orgasm, which is how David Carradine died. And in fact, the library director told me that a 15-year-old boy in her library died by this very means after reading from that website in the library that day, or the previous day. So that's when I knew the ALA was spreading harm, just like Dr. Laura said, and I began to do something about it, and that's how I ended up where I am and why I have a lot of experience with these terrible people. I could go on and on. You didn't used to call librarians groomers per se, but now that they're grooming them both sexually and with this Marxism, it's what they are. And by the way, groomers is not an anti-LGBT term, because when they groom them with Marxism, that has nothing to do with LGBT. Now, one of the things that they do is they always say it's an anti-LGBT thing. Well, that's a bunch of horseshit, because they know it. And they know it works. They know that, you know, using the R word, racist or LGBT, homophobe, they know it works. But they're the homophobes themselves. They never do anything about the homophobe who now runs the Office for Intellectual Freedom, the plagiarism she does, the illegal things she does on Wikipedia despite the tax laws, or anything that she does. These people can and will do anything, sue people, just anything to push more pornography and inappropriate pornography on children. It's getting worse with all this child porn stuff and anal sex and all this other kind of stuff. Crazy. You know, nobody would think this was normal, but librarians are coming out and saying, oh no, this is a First Amendment right, you can't do this. And then here's another double standard that they have, right? They tell you that you can't remove genderqueer from a library, a school library, because in 1973, the California versus Miller case ruled that obscenity has to answer to a 3-pronged test, one of which is that the work as a whole has to be considered prurient, or obscene. And since genderqueer is not as a whole considered obscene, then it's not obscene and cannot be removed from schools. That's what they tell you. But the double standard is, at the same time that they're telling you that, which is false, they're also telling their librarians that they are not members of law enforcement and they are not judges. As a result, they cannot make a legal determination as to what is child pornography. So if they see child pornography, they really don't. And they must protect that user's right to view the child pornography because they're not lawyers. The double standard here is they're saying we're not lawyers, we don't see child pornography. At the same time, they're telling parents, we are lawyers, and this is not child pornography. Right? But these are some of the slickest, dirtiest, nastiest, disgusting people I've ever met. Ever. And I mean, because nobody does this. Why? Why? Because they do this to children. Children are the victim here. Actually, they make victims of their own selves. They actually, the ALA policy also hurts librarians who are, for example, working in a sexually hostile work environment because the ALA says you can't filter the internet off, the porn out of the internet. So these librarians are working around with guys, you know, jerking off at the computers. Oh, you haven't heard that? Schools actually have hazmat kits because they can't tell the guy to stop jerking off. They just have to wait until he's done. Then they go and use a hazmat kit to clean up the keyboard afterwards. Oh, I'm serious. I'm serious. I could go on and on with unbelievable. Here, I'll go with another story. A 6-year-old child was viewing pornography on a computer in I think a Minnesota public library when the handyman came along and turned off the screen so he could no longer see the pornography. Well, the library director saw him do that and made him turn the screen back on for that boy and put that website back on because he was violating that boy's rights to view anything that he wanted to. Oh yeah, that's policy. In fact, but when it came to the child porn stuff, when they actually had it as official policy on a sample, like a sample library website, they had it as official policy that librarians are not part of the police. You're not policing child pornography. Only judges can do that. When they had that as official policy, and I actually wrote a letter to the head of the Office for Intellectual Freedom, who was a different guy by that time because she had already died. And he said, no, that's not true, because he went to that website and he took it down and replaced it with an older version. But it was true. They were literally training the librarians to ignore child porn on their sample policy site. So this is what they do. This is who they are. It all started from the ACLU. Everybody nationwide, all the librarians are all in favor of this. They're all even mocking me now. They've come out of the closet and they're starting to attack me personally, calling me Dick Chin. I don't even know what Dick Chin is, but it's crazy. And they attack me personally on a regular basis. So many of them block me. They get me blocked on different platforms just so that I can't say things. I was actually going to be booked on Fox News once to talk about Banned Books Week, and when the ALA found out that I was going to be the one they were debating against, they backed out and claimed there are no librarians in New York City who know enough to talk about Banned Books Week. So that kept me off the news. That was done to me in New Jersey by the New Jersey Library Association leader, but the particular news source wrote back to me and said, your issue's too important. We're going to put you on anyway. We're not going to let her not debating you, bomb our story. So we're just going to use pull quotes from previous stories we wrote about her. So I was able to say what I had to say. But that's what they do. They don't want to debate you. They just want to sexualize kids. They do it on a regular basis. They do it out in the open until called out, and then they hide it. And now all the librarians are all psyched that somebody is finally being sued for calling somebody a groomer. But I looked through the complaint, and I don't see where you actually called her a groomer. I just see her like saying or implying that. Maybe I'm wrong. Did you ever call her a groomer like I do? I don't see why librarians get away with this. If she were in a van next to a park doing the exact same things with children, somebody would beat the crap out. Watch the movie Gran Torino with Clint Eastwood. At some point in the movie, a guy who sexually abuses a child is beaten up with fists by about a dozen or more men. This is what happens to people who groom children, right? In America, they're given awards by the American Library Association. Oh, the American Library Association even gives awards not only for genderqueer, but they've given awards to the library that was covering up the child porn that all of us came up to. All this stuff, child porn, and admitting to child porn. The American Library Association saw to it that that library got an Intellectual Freedom Award from the Illinois School of Library Sciences, or whatever it's called. So they're giving awards for child pornography. They're telling librarians to ignore child pornography because they're not lawyers. They're hiding that when they get called out on it. And then they sue you for saying what they're doing. It's sort of like the people who hate libs of TikTok for reporting on what they're doing and saying. So, I'm trying to, I have a full-time job. I wish I could do this more. I'm trying to get people to see that you guys could use some help. You are the example for the nation because you are now being sued by basically every damn library in their hearts. And this is what people need to support you. You're in the right. You could feel better about it. You might lose some money over this because of costs going on lawyers, but you're going to feel way better that you it's obviously true. That's the whole thing about this. It's so obvious that children should be not having books that link you to kink.com and graphics of boys giving blowjobs to men. I know it's disgusting that we even have to talk about this, but we have to. And we can't even talk about it. It doesn't get in the press, like you said. You can't say it on the news. You can't say it in school board meetings. But the kids are getting it from the cute librarian and not from the guy in the truck at the park. That's what, that's another thing. Big tech will go after you. They killed my Safe Libraries original tweet handle with 4,385 people on it because I said the title of Larry Elder's new film at that time called Uncle Tom. And they used that as the excuse to delete Safe Libraries. Big tech hates anybody who stands up for children. They've gotten rid of Conceptual James. They've gotten rid of Stacy Langton, Nicoletta 0602, who was the mother sued by the teachers union for filing too many FOIA requests, supposedly, about CRT. They even got rid of Kitty Demure, who was a drag queen, who says, this is adult entertainment and it should not be in public libraries and is completely inappropriate for children. They got rid of him. They get rid of anybody who says anything in support of children. So it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that because part of the thing is these librarians all get together, they write to each other, and they tell them to mass report your pages. So now they're getting the mass reports of pages, and nobody actually reviews the thing. They just, well, we got 50 reports about this page, we must remove it. That's how it works. It's like, I think it's called the heckler's veto. They've done that to be on multiple cases. I exposed how they were using Wikipedia to make all sorts of lies and propagandize things, and they got me kicked off of that. These people are just so dirty. Whatever, they do anything. Let me tell you about the homophobia that they did, for example. The case was the child porn cover-up in a library in a suburb of Illinois and of Chicago, where the ALA is based. And it was a gay guy and who was conservative, and a conservative woman who had small children, who made the initial complaint about the child porn. Well, they attacked her. American Library Association eventually had a webinar on crisis communication workshop, something like that. And it really wasn't on crisis communication. It was really on how to counter people who claim that you have child pornography, because we all know that librarians don't see child pornography, so it's false right off the bat. And so that's the whole thing, was how to counter these two people. And during that training, the trainer, who was the library public relations director who sued me, said, "Why would a woman let her small children around a gay man?" I think most people would view that as homophobic, for real, not for fake. And anyway, the American Library Association knew that she said this and then rehired her to teach the same class again to more librarians. Okay, so they hired a homophobe who they knew said homophobic things at their training. Again, would you, if you knew somebody was an out-and-out homophobe, would you hire that person for your company? Well, gee, let's hire this homophobe to work at my company. No, you wouldn't do that. But that's what ALA does. I view that as homophobic as well. To further compound the homophobia, this lady, who's now who was then the deputy director of the Office for Intellectual Freedom, and is now the leader of it, she sent an email over her personal email address to the libraries and the librarians, telling them to delete the evidence that somebody has been filing FOIA requests. We don't want them to get any of the information from our meeting on crisis communication because we believe we have some exposure. So you need to delete, deny, and defend. And so she's giving orders over her personal email, so it supposedly doesn't get discovered via FOIA, to destroy public records. So here they are, to hide their homophobia. So this is an illegal thing to do, or advocating for them to destroy public records, to hide ALA's homophobia. This is the people who are helping Amanda Mack to sue you. This is it. They're dirty, and they're all high-fiving each other. Yep, that's what I believe. The ALA actually does give money to various organizations to do things and keeps it hidden. I've discovered that when I did a FOIA request in a Wisconsin case, in which only in the FOIA request did it come out that the librarian wrote to the ALA thanking them for the $1,000 gift. It wasn't in the news reported at ALA. It wasn't in any other news or anything. It only came out in the FOIA request that the lady that was pushing the porn was getting $1,000 from the American Library Association. You know, a local citizen got $1,000 for that. So they do this. It's what they do. They encourage people to do this. I have that training. I know about that training where they encourage you to file defamation suits. I can get that evidence for you so you could see it yourself. Because frankly, anything that I say, you should back up, see it yourself anyway, if only to understand it. So when you have to make this argument, you can, because you'll have seen it yourself. Right? And yes, I feel 100% that this is the ALA behind this. There is no way in hell that any librarian is going to, on her own, sue, because it's a big, giant waste of time and money. So she's being egged on by something. And, you know, like in my case, it was the private librarian suing, and she was raising money on GoFundMe, but in reality, she had been egged on by ALA, and the only settlement thing that they wanted from me was that I delete the article that was critical of ALA. So, I mean, come on, it's just obvious. There's a whole bunch of other stuff, but there's that. So yes, I do feel this is a totally an ALA move. They talk about this, they plan this, they found the right case, or they think they found the right case, and they're going for it. You know what? You're in Louisiana. There's been a number of other Louisiana cases where people have sued librarians and have lost. And I think they think that you people in Louisiana are all religious nuts. So you'll be easy to crack. That's just my opinion, but I don't have any real basis for it, except I know that there have been other Louisiana cases regarding libraries, and they were probably happy to get back at some Louisiana people. It's just an opinion of mine. I'm not as certain about that as the other things I've been certain about. Yeah. Thanks for saying that. But look, there are many people who support you and just don't know how or don't have the experience. Everybody's on your side. Everybody's afraid to say it. Even librarians are on your side. They know this has gone too far. They secretly hope that you win. That's just as simple as that. Not all librarians are this crazy, and some of them wish the craziness would stop. You know, it's like the gay people who want, like the organization called Against Groomers. They're a bunch of gay people who are against the grooming going on by gay people because they say it gives gay people a bad name, which it kind of does, actually, you know. There you go. So, so that's what's kind of going on here. There are librarians who would support you if they could, but are afraid to say anything openly about it. But they're watching and they're hoping you do it well and come out of this ahead. So you have the ALA goes out of its way to make you feel small and alone, and it's the exact opposite. Well, let me give you an example of that. It's what they do on a regular basis to make you feel, not just you, but everybody, feel small and alone. So because of the success of people pulling genderqueer out of schools, they've now created a new campaign. Okay, now Judith Krug is dead, so she couldn't create it, but they created a new campaign called Unite Against Book Bans. It's specifically to get this book, Genderqueer, into schools, more of them, and to convince people how to fool communities, media, legislators into allowing it. So they have a toolkit, for example, a toolkit that you have to read and it tells you exactly what are the theories for why these things need to be in schools. So one of the things that they tell you is that they took a poll and they determined that the vast majority of people oppose book censorship. Okay, well, look, you read that, and then they say, look, it's just these few parents who complain. They're on their own. They're crazies, they're religious people, whatever they are, they're egged on by Moms for Liberty or some other group, all right? But they're just loners. That's what they tell you. Meantime, the vast majority of people oppose book censorship. Okay, well, guess what they don't tell you? They don't tell you that a number of years earlier, I don't know how many years, Harris Poll ran a poll about explicit books in schools, not book censorship. Everybody opposes book censorship. But when it came to explicit books in schools, it turned out that I think it was, I can't remember, but like 86% of people, maybe 93, opposed explicit books in schools. They didn't tell you that. They didn't tell you that the vast majority of people support people like you who oppose explicit books in schools. They instead give you a poll that's irrelevant and then tell you you're just one of the few nuts. When in reality, it's the opposite, because everything ALA says is a lie. It's the opposite. Most people are with you. Most people support you. And if they don't say it, it's because they're not saying it because they're, as a librarian, because they're afraid of their jobs. And in reality, most people support not having this kind of stuff in schools. Look, Stacey Langton brought up this stuff in Fairfax County, Virginia, and Governor Youngkins won for running on that issue. So most people do support this, and Governor DeSantis now is exposing genderqueer with his pictures of the stuff with things blacked out on it. He's talking about this stuff too. Everybody opposes this except for the few groomers in the ALA who push this stuff and make it look like you are alone. That's their tactic. Don't be fooled by it. Oh, please. I've been through this for decades. And the idea is for people like you who are new to the fight, they want to glom onto you as fast as they can and wear you out immediately. That's also their tactic, right? They don't want you to build up immunity or scales or anything like that. They want to beat you down immediately. Don't be beat down. Everybody's on your side. We all hope you're winning, and they are the losers. They are the groomers, and they're relatively few in number, even if everybody else is afraid to speak up in that as a librarian. Because I'm the counter armor. I'm trying to give you the encouragement that you need to keep fighting for the children. Basically, that's what it is. There are few and far between of people who are willing to stand up for the kids because everybody goes, my kid will be out of school soon, or I'm not involved, or I don't care, or I'm afraid of them. That Stacy Langton is yeah, pro LGBT, pro gay friendly, pro friendly to everybody, but she couldn't take the crap going on in her school. And then when she went to the library board, they treated her like crap. And they silenced her and they yelled at her and everything, wouldn't listen to her. They told her to shut up or whatever. And that's how she started on her thing. So there's a lot of people who just happen in there and something bad happens because these people are just bad and they assume that they're wonderful. And then they wake up. That's how it happens. I haven't said anything here that is not true. So yeah, you can upload this and spread it to whomever you like who that will help you, because this is true.